In this video, we're going to look at creating an Oracle Application Express application using iPerspective to generate the client app, and iPerspective is going to create the web services that will expose data from any database, SQL Server, Oracle, MySQL, etc. So we have iPerspective up here, and we have a deployment target, which is an application server that contains a number of EAR files or packages in the iPerspective terminology. We have data sources. I have an Office sales database, and I can search by specific database objects, or I can fetch the objects out of my Oracle database. In this case, I'm going to fetch the objects just so we can see what's out there. I've got some tables, and I've got some views, and then I've got functions within the database as well. And so what I'll be able to do is drag and drop objects into a package, and a package can actually include a client generation. So it'll generate the web services, and it'll generate the client code, or in this case an application express application that I can import into Application Express. And over here what we have is Application Express running in a browser environment as well. So again, we see the tables, we see the views. We typically wouldn't expose raw tables in an application. We typically would expose views of information, but all the applications, all the services that get created are CRUD services, so we can do insert, update, and delete against those underlying tables and or views. We can also expose functions or packages as well. We're going to create a new package, and we're going to call this package ApEx app, and this is an Oracle Application Express app using iPerspective. And we can say that we want to generate a client. In this case, we're going to generate an Application Express client, and we're going to write that into a directory c:\IP. And so what's going to happen now is it's going to create the package for me, and we can see we have this new ApEx app that has no components within it at the current point in time. And if we start dragging and dropping objects, we can look at these objects, by the way. Click on Preview. This gives us states and the count of customers by state, so we'll drag that into our application. Customer orders, let's take a look at that information. Each of the customers, how many dollars in sales in accessories, men's, and women's items that we have for each of our top customers. So I'm going to drag and drop that in. And let's say that I want to include a little bit more information, maybe the sales by category, for example. Let's take a look at what's in there. That's just the total sales by each of the categories. Or maybe I want to break it down and look at sales by month by category. Let's take that object and drag it in. So at this point in time, we should have three objects that exist within my package. And this is a package of web services. If we look at these objects and we look at the configuration, we're going to see these are POJO SOAP-based services that return XML in an entity plain format. But you can also see there's a key attribute here, strip namespaces, because ApEx does not like namespaces and has problems with it. So what we do is we pre-configure all the services, which could be used by other products as well to consume these services if we so choose. You notice that back here in the details, we don't currently have a URI for these SOAP-based web services, which would be the WSDL, because we haven't actually generated the application yet. But you can see each of the column names, and we can include or exclude any column if we don't want to show certain information within the application that we create. We could eliminate them by not including them. They all look fine to me, so I'm going to go to my Application Express app, and you can see I can click Synchronize, which actually writes out the web services and writes the client app, the Application Express client app for me. I didn't write any code. I previously wrote code. As a best practice, it took 11 seconds to write all the web services and to deploy them to the app server and to write the Application Express client app. So what do we have at this point? Well, we have some services. Remember, I didn't have the URI before, and I can click on the URI and I can view the information. This is a WSDL. Includes full CRUD services. You can see we can count rows, we can delete rows, we can insert rows, we can select rows, ranges of rows, and so forth. And there are quite a few services that we give you right out of the box. So if we go back to our workbench, that application exists out there. If I go to Application Express, I'm going to log into my workspace, and it doesn't matter. The workspace has no attachment to the underlying data because the underlying data is being called in web services. So if I go into my application builder, what I'm going to be able to do is I'm going to be able to import this application into Application Express. So I clicked on the application builder. My machine seems to be slow at the moment. I'm going to import an application. And you saw I had a number of applications already there. I'm going to choose the file, and I'm already in the CIP ApEx directory. And we can see we have this new file that was just created, ApEx app, and I'm going to import that file into Application Express. So it successfully got imported. And again, it doesn't matter what the schema is that I put this into because I'm actually not using the schema. I'm calling web services in order to do this. And I auto-assign the ID within Application Express, so it's just going to create a unique ID. If I run the app and I click on Submit here, here's that data showing up within Application Express. And what you see here is this is an interactive report within Application Express where I have a number of different actions. I can select columns and say, oh, I actually don't care about accessories, for example, and now you see accessories doesn't show. Or I can click on Men's and say, well, I want to sort by any one of these fields, by the customer name, for example, in descending order. So I can sort the information, and I also can filter information. I can come in here and say that I want to filter different information. I can put a control break in there, for example, and you can see there are a lot more different things that I can do with this data. I could download it into an Excel CSV file. I can download it into a PDF. I can look at what the data was as of a specific point in time. I can format any time a value is over $10,000 order. I might want to look at that, or I can aggregate information and look at the totals, for example. So I have a lot of functionality through this user interface. And each of the different services that I created, those 3 different services, show up as three different tabs within my application. And if there's numeric data, then we graph that information, and you can see that we've got some different information graphed here, which is just the count of each of the states. We happen to only have one. Each state has only one customer in it, and here we're looking at sales by category by month. And so you can see we've got a number of different pieces of data that we're showing here, and we can go in and from this point we can configure the application within Application Express. You can see that I'm not showing these as numbers. It didn't recognize them as number data types, so I could go in and edit that or fix that, for example. Within Application Express, I have all the standard functionality. All I did was I wrote all the code behind the scenes into a SQL file that gives me all the services, and you could come in and you can customize the application. If I go to that ApEx application, for example, and I look in Shared Components, you can see here's all the web service references. So I automatically created these web service references pointing to my services, and I can come in here and I can test them out, and I can say, let me see what happens if I count the number of rows. I click on Test. Here's the SOAP header. Here's the SOAP response. There's 7 rows in that particular table. Or let's see what happens if I say Select All. If I select all, then here are all my records. And you can see the XML that's coming back from them. So I can look at any of my services and I can test them out. I can also go into my application itself and I can run my app, and then down at the bottom here you can see that there's a create button, and I can say I want to create a new something within here. I could create a new form and a report based off of a web service, and I can pick whichever service I want. I'm going to say customer order service, and I select my operation from the service. I could do an insert, I could do a count, I could do whatever I wanted. I can say select all, and you can fill out the wizard, and it just prompts you through using that particular web service. I'm going to return that data, and I'm going to display all the columns in this case. And I can say that I want to use the existing tab set, and this is a new tab called demo, and I'm going to create a form and report, and I'm going to run it and submit. And in this case I have to say that I want all rows. I must have messed something else up within here, but let me try 1 equals 1. See if I get all the rows in. Okay, so you can see I messed something up within here, but each of these other things, when I tried to create it by hand, it didn't work. But those services actually do work. So you can create an application in Application Express that consumes all of your services.